Good morning, all of our industry partners, and welcome to the NAVAIR webinar series from the Office of Small Business Programs. And today's webinar series is to talk about the Mentor-Protege Program. My name is Christina Watts, and I am the Small Business Liaison Officer here at the Office of Small Business Programs at the Naval Patuxent River Air Base. So welcome, everyone, and good morning, and thank you for attending. So just a couple housekeeping notes for this morning's webinar series. We do have a Q&A, so please fire off any questions that you may have for the Q&A on the Mentor-Protege program, and our lovely panels and our lovely presenters will be able to answer those questions for you. If we don't get to all of your questions, don't worry. We will make sure to get them all taken care of, get them answered, take them down, and we will send them out at a later after the webinar has ended. Along with you will get a copy of the presentation as well as a recording of the webinar, which will be published on the NAVAIR OSBP website. So with that, without further ado, I would like to turn this over to our Director of Small Business here at the NAVAIR office, Mr. Shelby Butler. Over to you, Mr. Butler.
Good morning, small businesses! Thank you all for joining us at today's event presented by NAVAIR. It is my pleasure to welcome you to a discussion about the Department of Defense's, the Department of Navy's, and the Small Business Administration's Mentor-Protege Programs. Our goal is to prepare your company to be defense industrial base ready. In order to achieve that goal, it will take persistence, doing your homework, patience, dedication, performance, the right capabilities matched with the right requirements, and persistence. Next slide. Our command focuses its energy on our sailors and Marines. Since its inception, NAVAIR's goal has been to provide full lifecycle support of naval aviation aircraft, weapons, and systems operated by sailors and Marines. This includes research, design, development, systems engineering, acquisition, test and evaluation, training facilities and equipment, repair and modification, and in-service engineering and logistics support. We rely on our team members, civilian, military, and industry partners to adhere to these principles and provide our sailors and Marines with the latest technology and the ability to sustain legacy systems, weapons, and aircraft. Next slide. Our role in naval aviation is very clear. We are dealing with at pace challenges from Russia, China, and others. Therefore, we have to increase our innovation and productivity in the areas that support the aircraft and our weapons systems. A huge part of that involves acquiring the applicable data to make informed decisions regarding cost, schedule, and performance. We also are focused on increasing the Navy and Marine Corps' capabilities, readiness, and affordability. Next slide. And now, it is my pleasure to introduce our first speaker. Miss Mercedes Thurston assumed her position at the Department of Navy Office of Small Business Programs Mentor-Protege Program Manager in April 2020. In Ms. Thurston's role, she manages all active and non-active mentor-protege agreements, or MPAs. Additionally, she educates the acquisition workforce about the Mentor-Protege program, reviews budget requests, provides advice and guidance to the major buying commands on contract actions and funding requests concerning MPAs. Prior to supporting the Department of Navy Office of Small Business Programs, Ms. Thurston served as a contracting officer with an unlimited warrant at the Naval Sea Systems Command, or NAVSEA. Since beginning her acquisition career, Ms. Thurston has gained experiences dealing with various acquisitions to include major weapon systems, shipbuilding, research and development, and professional and engineering support services. She holds a Bachelor's of Science degree in Business Administration from North Carolina A&T and a Master's of Business Administration from Trinity Washington University. And now, I give you Miss Mercedes Thurston. Over to you.
Good morning, and thank you so much for that wonderful introduction, Mr. Butler. I must say, I wish I could carry you around with me all the time for you to introduce me like that. Good morning to all of the industry partners. As Mr. Butler said, my name is Mercedes Thurston, and I am the Department of Navy's Office of Small Business Programs Mentor-Protege Program. So let's go ahead and get into the presentation. Next slide, please. So the Mentor-Protege Program is a program that can assist small businesses in developing and enhancing skills, capabilities, and efficiencies that will help them to participate more effectively in federal government contracting, successfully perform contract work, and be a value-added member of the defense industrial base. The program was established in fiscal year 91 in response to DOD prime contractors' concerns for small disadvantaged businesses that did not possess technical capabilities necessary to perform subcontractor requirements. The program attempts to address these challenges by helping primes achieve their small disadvantaged businesses subcontracting goals. The program provides incentives to DOD prime contractors or funding assistance to these DOD prime contractors to assist small businesses in enhancing their business development and technology capabilities, increase subcontracting participation in government and commercial contracts, as well as position small businesses for prime contracting opportunities by increasing protege firms' technical and business infrastructure capabilities. Next slide, please. The Department of Defense, as well as the Department of Navy Mentor-Protege Program is open for business. The NDA 2020 did reauthorize the program through 30 September 2024, which means that we are accepting new agreements until that date. The NDA did make a few changes. The first being that it decreased the length of mentor-protege agreements. So for those of you who've known the program for a while, the agreements used to go up to 3 years. It decreased it to 2 years. We are working to try to get it back up to 3 years, but for now, if an agreement is submitted, it would have to be submitted under a 2-year or 24-month perspective. Additionally, the NDAA removed the requirement for small businesses needing to be half the size standard of the NAICS code. So now you just have to be no more than the size standard of your NAICS code to qualify as a small business. Next slide, please. So DOD and the DON are looking for MPA efforts that focus in areas of knowledge-based, manufacturing, and research and development. So when we say knowledge-based, we mean things like cybersecurity, engineering, and testing, software, etc. Of course, manufacturing, the production of items, and research and development. Next slide, please. This chart details the amount of funds DOD invested in the key development areas from fiscal year 19 to fiscal year 21. So as you can see, most of the funding was in services, but we have tried to kind of catch up with manufacturing and R&D. This just kind of gives you an idea of across all of the DOD Mentor-Protege programs, so any DOD that could include not just Navy, but Army, Air Force, etc. This is how much money DOD spent and in which areas they spent the funds in. Next slide. Okay, so why? Why should you participate in the Mentor-Protege Program? So, or why do we, the government, want the Mentor-Protege Program? So small businesses deliver performance with agility and affordability. It is imperative that DOD and the Navy identify small businesses, startups, and non-traditional suppliers to contribute to the DON's effort to modernize key capabilities. Through the program, a small business capability can be enhanced, resulting in higher quality products and services for the customer. This translates to a more capable small business industrial base to support and or enhance the needs of the warfighter. This slide provides specific details on the benefits for each stakeholder. Ultimately, for DOD, we want to ensure we are continuing to incorporate innovative technologies and resolve any operational challenges that Am I back?
Yes, ma'am, you are.
Okay, so sorry about that. Okay, so this slide provides specific details on why the benefits for each stakeholder ultimately, Ultimately, DOD wants to ensure we're continuing to incorporate innovative technologies, resolve any operational challenges for the warfighter. We think that some of this can be accomplished by working with and increasing the small business industrial base. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so who can participate? So in order to be a mentor, a contractor must, one, be eligible to receive federal contracts, have at least one prime contract with at least one active subcontracting plan, have DOD contracts totaling at least $100 million from previous fiscal year, and must demonstrate they can provide qualified assistance, be in good financial health, and not be disbarred or suspended. Mentors must submit applications through DOD for approval. However, if you want to get a mentor-protege agreement with the Navy and are working on it with the Navy, let me and my office know, and we can reach out to DOD and try to push to get the mentor approval application approved simultaneously as the mentor-protege agreement is being worked. Okay. This slide also has the link of where you go to apply to be a mentor. Next slide, please. Okay, so to be a protege, you must fall within, oh, Christine, I think we're a slide off. Can you go back up for me? One more slide. Yeah, okay. So to be eligible to be a protege, you must fall within one of the socioeconomic categories in the middle of the slide or above in the above slide. Recently added was the last bullet, which identifies an entity providing goods and services in a private sector critical to enhancing DOD supplier base. So I have yet to see something like that be approved, but if you think you have something that the government needs and you are one of the only ones who can do that, feel free to reach out to me in my office so we can determine if you would fall under that, if you don't fall under one of the other small business categories. A protege must also be eligible for award of a federal contract and must not be owned by the mentoring company. And I emphasize the not because Ms. Perkins will discuss later on how with her mentor-protege program, there can be some invested stake. But for DOD contracts, the mentoring company cannot have any percentage of ownership in the protege company. Next slide, please. So there are three types of agreements. The first is reimbursable, the second is credit, and then the third is hybrid. Both the credit and hybrid agreement need DCMA approval, regardless of which defense or agency you're doing an agreement with. And credit agreements go straight to DCMA for review, approval, and administration. Hybrids will go to the agency or component, i.e. Navy, that you would be working with, but we would need DCMA approval. Reimbursable provides monetary reimbursable for the cost of the developmental assistance incurred by the mentor to the protege, and those are held and administered, reviewed, agreed upon, and administered at the agency level. So my office would agree upon those and approve and award, etc. Next slide, please. So how do we participate, or how can you participate in the Mentor-Protege program? So the first thing would be a mentor and protege selection. So the Navy does not release a solicitation or a BAA. The Mentor-Protege program is initiated by the mentor and the selected protege. So I want to make it abundantly clear that we do not put mentors and proteges together. We have learned throughout the years that the best mentor-protege agreement is one with those where the mentor and protege have already established an organic relationship. Agreements that are often put together don't normally last, and if they do, the future of it kind of falls apart. So we like for you to have already established some type of working relationship, and you come to us as your partner. So as I mentioned, the Navy does not release a solicitation or BAA. Some of the other DOD agencies do. So they typically have once or twice a year where you can submit a mentor-protege agreement. We are open year-round. We have specific dates where we provide or pull all of our resources to focus on them, but we accept mentor-protege agreements all year round. So once you and your mentor protege, once your team has been selected and come together, you would then, the mentor would want to identify a major buying command for sponsorship. So selecting a command for sponsorship should be based on the product or service that the mentor and the protege can provide to the command. For example, if the contractor specializes and provides products in construction, you'll want to seek sponsorship from, you should not be trying to seek sponsorship from NAVC or NAVAIR, but you would want to seek sponsorship from NAVFAC because they do the construction for the Navy. After you have identified your major buying command, you want to have an introductory briefing. And in the introductory briefing, stakeholders reach a tentative agreement and sponsorship is solidified. The mentor provides a white paper or other initial documents identifying the proposed agreement to the major buying command and the customers that's being supported. Next, you have your agreement submission. So this is when the formal mentor-protege agreement is submitted to my office for approval through the major buying command small business office for their review and endorsement. So normally with the introductory briefing, you have it with your major buying command, those customers that would be in that major buying command. I always say engage my office as soon as possible, because if we know about it sooner, we can continue to push and make sure we're on top of it and prepared for it. So once that formal mentor-protege agreement is put together, it will be submitted to the major buying command small business office, and they would provide it to my office along with an endorsement letter saying, hey, we endorse this mentor-protege agreement. Finally, the mentor-protege contract begins, and once the MPA is approved, funds are requested from DOD and submitted to our Center of Excellence, where they will then draft and award a standalone contract to be issued to the mentor. And a more detailed flow and description of the process can be found in the Department of Navy's Mentor-Protege Guidebook, and the link is on the side of the slide, as well as at the bottom of all of my slides is the DOD link. Okay. Next slide, please. Thank you. As mentioned in my previous slide, it is the responsibility of the mentor and the protege to determine which major buying command would sponsor their agreement. The partnership should identify how the proposed agreement would benefit the major buying command and which customer or program of record will be supported. So if I have not said it, what also sets the Navy's Mentor-Protege program apart from the other DOD is we always try to link our Mentor-Protege agreements to a program of record or future program of record that's coming. Because we really like to show, hey, we didn't just do a Mentor-Protege agreement to kind of help a small business get on their feet, but we did this Mentor-Protege agreement to help this small business get on their feet, and they are now ingrained in the Navy's program of X, Y, and Z, to really show fruit that this Mentor-Protege agreement not just built this small business up, but now they are in and doing business with the Navy and have become a successful partner with the Navy in addition to their partner that they have with the mentor. So for those of you that do not know, the Navy has 10 major buying commands. NAVAIR is one of those 10. And each of the buying commands are responsible for a specific duty to support the warfighter. Each command has identified challenges and capability gaps in which they believe small businesses can fill. Each command has a small business director and small business professionals that can help you identify those opportunities. So I encourage you to either go to the DON's website, which is at the bottom of the slide, and we can link you to each one of those buying commands, which they have long-range forecasts, or reach out to those buying commands and see if they can help you when looking for and identifying which small business command you would want to assist in or sponsor your mentor-protege agreement. Next slide, please. Project Spectrum gives mentor-protege participants educational training resources, tools, and direct coaching to support manufacturers' cyber hygiene, cybersecurity policy, regulation, and the upcoming CMMC compliance. Ultimately, Project Spectrum works to assist participants in becoming CMMC compliance ready. So as many of you know, it has been put in the works that all companies need to be CMMC compliant by 2025. So as an added bonus of being a participant in the DOD's Mentor-Protege Program, you get to participate in the Project Spectrum initiative, which is in addition to the Mentor-Protege Program, where you have to work, I believe it's about 10 hours a month, and they work with you to get your company's cyber hygiene where it needs to be to make sure you're going to be CMMC compliant and ready. So that is a free service that is also offered in addition to being a part of the Mentor-Protege Program. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned before, we have certain times where we review, or we set aside time specifically where we do nothing else but review mentor-protege agreements, and that's the month of November and the month of June. However, we accept them all the time, and based upon workload will depend, you know, how much additional time you need to process. But as I mentioned, if you engage us early and often, we can make sure we set our schedule so that we can accommodate and get the mentor-protege agreement awarded as soon as possible. Additionally, my office will be having, the Don OSBP office will be having a mentor-protege office hour next week, July 28th. Well, I'll be doing a brief presentation on mentor-protege, and then it will be a open session for Q&A. So if you're interested, please visit the Don OSBP website and register for the event, especially in case I don't get to answer all of the questions today. Next slide, please. Additionally, this is all of my contact information. I believe they said the presentation will be provided. So if you ever feel like you need to reach out to me, all of my information and contact information is there. So I look forward to speaking with anybody who is interested in completing a mentor-protege agreement. And Mr. Butler, that is all that I have. So I'm going to turn my time and the speaking floor back over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Thurston. Next slide. And now It is my pleasure to introduce our final speaker. Miss Kanika Perkins is from Kansas City, Missouri, and is the Deputy Director of the Mentor-Protege Program for the Small Business Administration. Ms. Perkins oversees the operations of the program, ensuring that every decision that is made is in the best interest of building small business capacity and developing the small business industrial base. She has managed, advised, and advocated for more than 30 8A contractors throughout their 9 years in the 8A Business Development Program and has conducted numerous training and outreach events on the SBA's small business certification programs. Ms. Perkins has contract specialist experience in construction, architecture engineering, and construction management contracts. Prior to entering the federal government, Ms. Perkins worked in several industries to include real estate, nonprofits, and education. She holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in English Literature with a minor in Spanish from the University of Missouri, Columbia, and a Master of Arts degree in Marketing from Webster University. I present to you next Miss Katrina Perkins. Over to you.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for that very lively welcome. I was getting ready, or I was waiting for "Let's Get Ready to Rumble," which is what that reminds me of. Anyway, I will go ahead and get started. Okay, so I like to start off with kind of a quiz question here and there. Would you mind forwarding the slide 1, please? Okay. So here's a question. So Protege Small Biz is 8A Hub Zone in Wellsby. Small Biz forms an MPA relationship with a mentor named Big Biz, and later a joint venture. So the question is, which certifications does the joint venture possess? And the answer is all of the above. And there's a reason I put this question in here, because this basically is the basis behind why the SBA Mentor-Protege Program exists. So today I'm just going to give you an overview of just kind of what we do, the benefits that you can plan on receiving in our program, and then most importantly, how to get in and how to stay in the program. So just kind of an overview, and I'm moving forward probably 2 slides. There's 6 different types of business assistance. So just putting this in context, this is the protege business saying, okay, there's some deficiencies that I have as a business, and I want a mentor to come in and assist with those deficiencies. So we label those accordingly. We call them management and technical assistance, financial assistance, contracting assistance, international trade education, business development assistance, and administrative assistance. And just to give you an example of a few of those, financial assistance is one of those where, let's say the mentor wants to invest or take some piece of ownership in the protege firm. That is something that is allowed in our program to a point without there being a finding of affiliation. And I'll get into that more specifically in just a little bit. Contracting assistance, I'm sure you guys know the most common one, of course, is the 2 businesses coming together to form a temporary entity known as a joint venture, which is essentially 2 or more businesses coming together to do what neither one of those businesses can do on their own. And then let's see, administrative assistance, that could be anything from HR assistance to, personnel, so forth and so on. So those are just kind of some examples of the types of business assistance. Next slide, please. This one is a pretty important one. So think of this in context of teaming, like all things teaming, right? And I have this slide because there's so many different mentor-protege programs within the federal government, and a lot of terms are used interchangeably. They have very specific meanings at SBA, and so I want you to kind of get to know those. And that way, if we're talking to you about something, you know exactly what it is we're talking about. So, of course, you have teaming, which really isn't on this slide. It's more of kind of an elusive term that is defined in part by the FAR. That's two businesses basically coming together. A number of their terms aren't really definitized, but they're like, you know what? Let's just come together. Let's put in on this solicitation. Then you have, I'm going to start from the bottom actually, business development. That was that previous slide, right? So that is you as the small business protege saying, you know, there's something that I really want to work on in my business. For many of you, that's going to be forming that temporary entity known as a joint venture, but it could be something else. The example that I tend to give most often is QuickBooks. You know, I need someone to teach me how to, you know, use QuickBooks. Most of our MPAs, of course, are more complex than that, but that just kind of, you know, brings that into, you know, into terms that I think all of us can kind of relate to. Then there's subcontracts. So subcontracts, if I can piggyback off of a few points that Mercedes made earlier in the presentation, subcontracts are really important. I think they tend to be overlooked a lot by small businesses. It's like, you know, I want to go in this as a prime or not at all. But if you really sit back and think about it, subcontracts is kind of a way for you to participate in the federal marketplace without all the responsibility. So if you know, meet someone as in a business and they go after a contract and they need some type of assistance and you are that assistance in the form of a subcontractor, then that's an opportunity for you to not only get to work with that firm, but that's an opportunity also for you to get to understand the key players in that agency. Every agency and every buying activity with any agency is going to be a little bit different. So you being able to understand some of the forms and the processes and the clauses and all these different responsibilities, that's really important. You get to observe without really taking the hit as far as the responsibility is concerned. So don't overlook that. That could really be a way to get to that thing that's at the top of the slide, which is joint ventures. So you meet and you date people as far as subcontracts go, right? Then let's say, you know, you meet a mentor, you guys have subcontracted together a few times. It's a really good working relationship. Then, you know, the two of you could definitely form a joint venture. A few more points before I move on from this slide. Just some things I want you to keep in mind about joint ventures and mentor-protege program and all these different terms of art and just what does this mean for you, right? So some things to keep in mind about this is that technically speaking, you don't really need the Mentor-Protege program to joint venture. What do I mean by that? Well, okay, so you're small, and then what if the person or the company rather that you're partnering with also sizes out as small and collectively you're small? So we'll just use like a construction NAICS code of 236220. I mean, 36.5 million is a lot to most people. It's a lot to me. I have not made an average of 36.5 million in 3 years, 5 years, or anything in between. So that's a lot of money. So let's say the two of you independently and collectively are small. You can technically form a joint venture without entering our program. You can learn how to do QuickBooks without entering our program, or subcontract definitely without entering our program. Why do I mention this? Because you only have 2 bites at the apple as a small business in our program. So you find a mentor, you get an MPA, that's relationship 1. And now you can get a second MPA with that same firm, or let's say you want a different firm, either at the same time as MPA number 1 or sometime after, whatever. That's 2 opportunities. That's 2 lifetime opportunities, and that's it. I say that so that you walk away understanding as much as you need to understand about all these things, teaming, how they work together, whether they matter, whether you need my program or the DOD program or EPA's program or, whichever agency. That way you know exactly what you're getting into and you can plan and be in control of the growth of your business accordingly. Next slide, please. So I talked about all these different terms, right? Okay, I got to point out a deficiency. I can work with these other businesses in these other ways. I may or may not need the Mentor-Protege program. The hope, regardless, but especially if you use our program, is that you as a small business will be able to expand your capacity and to therefore bid independently. Next slide, please. So I can't give this whole presentation without giving some bragging rights to my tiny but mighty team. There are only, as of right now, 4 people who report to me in the Mentor-Protege program. And since 2016, and this number was updated maybe 2 weeks ago, so it's probably even higher now. So we have reviewed as an office over 2,500 mentor-protege agreements within that 6 years. So I have, as of 3 months ago, 3 people working on applications, 1 person working on compliance. That is a lot of work for what is sometimes maybe just 2 people on a team. So there's a lot that we're looking at. We're wanting to make sure that everything is in correspondence with our regs and that it makes sense and gives you an opportunity as a small business to really see some of those benefits and gains that, our program was designed to provide for you. However, even though SBA, next slide please, is the predominant program for the Mentor-Protege program stuff, like if you just want a generic Mentor-Protege agreement so you can go forth with a joint venture and be great, we're that program. However, there are 6 other programs that are out there. And one you've heard of, so Department of Defense, they have theirs, NASA has theirs, Homeland Security has one, the FAA has one, also the Department of Energy and the Department of Transportation. And so they all have their delegated authorities to be able to run their own programs. Just note that they're all independent. They're not transferable. So for many of these, not all, but for many of these, SBA has actually granted some type of delegated authority for a period of time. And the reason, or let me put it this way, the determining factor in giving that delegated authority was whether the benefits were unique to SBA. So keep that in mind. There's other programs out there, but of course they are way more specific to that agency's mission. Okay, next slide, please. So I'm going to go into some guidance that really isn't new anymore, but I still like to go over it because there's a lot of rules about it. And let's face it, when we're talking about the federal marketplace and these different programs, that's a niche market, right? That's a small community. So perhaps you know someone, whether you're working with that entity now, or you know someone who at some time used my program, maybe use one of the other programs. There's a lot of scuttlebutt that comes up as a result of that. So I like to mention these changes. They happened nearly almost 2 years ago, about a year and a half ago, but not everyone knows or understands these. Next slide, please. Now, I'm just going to go over them briefly. So a few years ago, my office and the 8A Mentor-Protege program, those programs combined. So what you guys might have heard of a long time ago was that there was the all small Mentor-Protege program. And then if you were an 8A, there was the 8A Mentor-Protege program. If you're placing this on a timeline, of course, the 8A program existed eons ago. And it was exclusive to 8As, of course. Well, through Congress was like, we really want this benefit to extend to all eligible small business concerns. And voila, there was the All Small Mentor-Protege Program. But if you look at the regs for both, which are 13 CFR 125.9, that is the guidance that governs my program. And the one that used to exist for the 8A program, I believe, was 13 CFR 520, 128. I think I might be making that up. Anyway, it doesn't exist anymore. My point is, there used to be two, they used to be identical, and they were very redundant. So the whole reason of putting these two programs together was to basically streamline that, say, okay, we realize that there are nearly identical benefits from these programs. Let's put them together and, let's see what happens. So we put those together some time ago, and we do things at SBA, we do them big, so we didn't just consolidate. So within, I think, 200 or some odd pages, we did a bunch of stuff, and here's some of the salient points. So one really big one had to do with facility security clearances. So the determination by SBA is that those clearances are not required for the joint venture entity itself when both partners have the clearance. So what was the reason for that? I just kind of want to touch on that a little bit, just because I'm presenting here with people who are from DOD, because a lot of their contracts tend to have, security clearance requirements. The whole reason behind that is because, remember that slide where I was showing, okay, you got to, figure out what your deficiencies are and then find a mentor to match those? Well, one of the deficiencies, because it's not cheap, is receiving a facility security clearance. So what did Protege say? You know what? This is expensive, but we really want to build our capacity in XYZ industry. So one of the things that we really want to gain from this relationship is being able to utilize, if you will, the facility security clearance of that mentor firm. So this kind of became an issue. SBA for quite a while was silent on the matter, and then as of about a year and a half ago, we put it out there. Look, this is really hurting small businesses to not be able to utilize these different tools that their larger, more experienced mentors have. This is the determination that we're making. Okay, so some of the other points are a tool that the Protege has is annulment, meaning it's just like it sounds. It's nothing complicated. So within the first 18 months, you get with that mentor, you're like, you know what, this is not going as I'd hoped. Then Protege, you can request to have that relationship annulled. Now, this is not something that we expect or want for Proteges to use haphazardly. There's time and effort being spent on the part of both parties. So we suggest that you use this wisely, but we did create this tool along with the rule change. And remember when I was talking about financial assistance in the previous slide? Well, a larger, more experienced business is able to invest in that small business protege up to 40%. I thought I'd quantify it in this slide without there being a finding of affiliation between those firms. And then something that's not new but reiterated is that mentors are not allowed to go shopping at the expense of protege firms. That's something that I hate to see. I have seen that since my tenure in the Mentor-Protege Program. These are small businesses that are trying to build capacity, not necessarily enrich other than small businesses, at their own expense. So we protect small businesses. We care about what happens to you. We reiterated this in this rule change. And then also, there is a limit for mentors. You may have up to 3 relationships with proteges concurrently. If those firms are from Puerto Rico, that maximum increases to 5. Next slide, please. And just in the interest of time, I'll start to pick up the pace a little bit. So some of the other things that were mentioned or changed in that rule change a year and a half ago, for some of you, you might remember what used to be called the 3 and 2 rule. Okay, you go get that joint venture, you go after these requirements, you can earn up to 3 contracts in 2 years. Do not ask why they quantified or put a limit on that. I never understood that. They removed it, which is great. There's way too much administrative burden on the part of district offices, to some degree, even headquarters. So now there is what I like to call unlimited in 2. So just go for it, be great, earn all the contracts that you can actually perform. And let's see some other points on here. Proteges may substitute mentors. So substitutions are also something that's new as a result of this rule change. And let's see, is there anything else? Oh yeah, more importantly, SBA does not review joint ventures, competitive or sole source for 8A, well, unless it's 8A sole source and then that goes to the district office. Otherwise, we don't review, receive, approve joint ventures, period. So again, my office approves the mentor-protege agreement. Once you form that joint venture, you let us know that you formed the joint venture, but as far as the joint venture documentation itself, it's not something that we maintain. Next slide, please. And then, Christina, after you show that next slide, you can just hold it for a few seconds and then skip forward to the next slide. So next we'll talk about MPP eligibility. So how do you get into the program? So you have to be a for-profit business. There cannot be a determination of affiliation between the protege and the mentor. You have to, of course, be small for your NAICS code. The mentor can have some equity in your firm, but no more than 40%. And again, as far as limits on both parts, a protege may have no more than 2 lifetime mentors, and the mentor may have up to 3 proteges concurrently. Okay, the application. And Christina, same goes for these next 2 slides. If you could hold the first one for just a moment and then go right to the subsequent slide. So when you decide, or should you decide, to apply to our program, this is essentially what it's going to look like. So just like in Mercedes' program, you're going to find your mentor. We don't do matchmaking or placement or anything like that. And for good reason, some of those Mercedes actually mentioned. So you're going to select your mentor, register in SAM, apply through Certify, that's certify.sba.gov, and then you're going to put that proverbial pot on the stove and let it simmer for 105 days. Yep, 105 days. So why 105? Well, along with the certification programs, depending on which program you're talking about, no fewer than 70% of applications that come into the SBA are incorrect. In some kind of way. There's an omission, a deficiency, at least one for every program. And so we have a screening process, and that is the first 15 days. So we're just making sure that you have the stuff that we require, which is just the MPA itself and a training certificate for the protege, a training certificate for the mentor. It's a little more complex than that, but just kind of boiling it down in the interest of time, that's basically what you're responsible for sending us. I know it sounds super simple, but people kind of flub up all the time. If you make it through that 15 days, then now we have a system that assigns you directly to an analyst, and then that analyst has 90 days. Do we always take 90 days? Absolutely not. It just really depends. This is 4th quarter right now. It's the proverbial money dump. Applications are coming through fast and furious. So if you're thinking about it, you might want to do that now. And then always remain responsive. So one of the main reasons why applications end up being withdrawn is because we send an RFI to the protege and we say, hey, this was missing or this needs to be addressed. The protege then has 90 days, 5 days to address that RFI. If it's addressed, sufficiently, then it moves forward. If not, it's withdrawn. I will make one comment that's not on here. One of the things that we've been checking for, and this is really important in proteges, we also check for the mentor's character. That is a requirement for us per the 13 CFR. And we check it through LexisNexis. So what happens is we look in LexisNexis, and as the expression goes, more money, more problems. Your mentor is probably going to have more money. They've got more stuff in LexisNexis that they need to address. We send an RFI. Sometimes it is a laundry list of things that they're probably not going to be able to respond to in 5 days. The analysts sometimes do give extensions, especially if there's an extensive list. But if those issues are not withdrawn in an adequate period of time, then the application is also withdrawn. We do not share with the protege what those things were, but we will say, your application was withdrawn as a matter of character. So I wanted to add that as well. Next slide, please. So that's about how to stay in or get in the program, rather. Next, we're going to talk briefly about how to stay in the program. And this is the thing that I think sometimes people don't listen to, but it is super important. So when you're talking about staying in the program, our program lasts up to 6 years unless SBA or either party decides to terminate that agreement for any reason. The main tool for compliance with us, and you can move forward one more slide, Christina. The main reason is because the protege did not respond to the request to actually submit an annual evaluation. This is required every year. It is required for us to know exactly how your relationship is going. We currently use SurveyMonkey. We've been using that for many years now, actually, and it is a very expensive annual evaluation. If I remember correctly, it is 84 questions. So every year, the protege must fill that out. If they do not fill that out, they will get terminated. Next slide, please. So there are a few things that the protege is responsible for: submitting those reports, demonstrating material or developmental benefits. What's that mean? If it's not working out and the protege says it's not working out and doesn't want to continue, or otherwise implies in the annual evaluation, we won't continue that relationship. You're also, per 13 CFR, and I think this might be in the FAR as well, you're also required to give us annual and project end reports and certificates of compliance along with your projects. Now, what is the mentor responsible for? Doing what they said they do in the agreement. Just that simple. Next slide, please. So I have 2 points here, and one of them is struck out intentionally because I want everyone to know that there used to be a rule, and I still get asked this question a lot. There used to be a rule that we no longer hold as a rule. The first one we still do. So again, SBA reserves the right to terminate your agreement for noncompliance, even if the mentor hasn't, or especially if rather, the mentor hasn't provided proper assistance. The thing that I scratched out was this preceded my tenure in this office, but there used to be a rule where you got your welcome letter from us. That welcome letter was good for 3 years, and then we told you there was going to be some elusive process that we come up with to vet you for that next 3 years. We no longer do that. So we abide by what has always been in 13 CFR, which is your agreement will automatically renew for up to 6 years unless SBA or either party to that agreement decide to terminate that agreement. So keep that in mind. Just stay compliant, and as long as you see a benefit in having that relationship, you can continue. So some of the pitfalls. Next slide, please. So what is a clean case? So a minute or two ago, I said something like, well, most of the programs don't really receive accurate applications. My office refers to those as cases. So what's a clean case? This is basically a a case without error or omission. And so why is this slide important? Because this is your ticket to getting your NPA as soon as possible. So one, we need a tutorial certificate. We need that from the protege, we need it from the mentor. And you sign both of your certificates independently, and you attach them and certify. We also need that NPA. Now, there's a few different versions out there. Remember, we used to be 2 different programs. The references in there need to regard, apologies, 125.9 and not 124.520. Those are those numbers I couldn't think of earlier. They don't exist anymore. That was the guidance that regulated the 8A program. That is no longer. So we're just one mentor-protege program now. And then also include in there, I call it the SMART model. The team sometimes refers to it as timelines. We don't just want to know that you want to know everything about QuickBooks. We want to know how often you're going to meet with your mentor, what that looks like, how you're going to measure your success, so forth and so on. So basically, if you can just kind of chart that out, that would keep the back and forth down significantly. If you are applying under your primary NAICS and you chose a primary NAICS if you have a profile in SAM. So if it's 236-220, if that's your primary NAICS, you do not need to give us proof of experience. If you're like, well, let me apply in this other NAICS code of 541-310, whatever, you're going to need to give us proof of experience. Why? You need to give us proof of experience because we don't want you being a pass-through. We care about what happens to you. We're not here to enrich people who are already rich. So we want to make sure that you have experience in what you are wanting to build capacity in, okay? And then you can scratch out the last one. We used to have a requirement for a business plan, but we no longer do that just so we can kind of streamline our stuff as well. How many more minutes do I have? I want to make sure I don't run over.
You have 3 minutes.
I have 3 minutes? All right, I'll make it snappy, I promise. Okay, so I think the last thing I want to talk about, Christina, would you mind going to question 2? The quiz question I have. I feel like examples like this teach people more than just looking at slides and listening to me drone on all day. So question 2 is, and I'll start reading it now. So I want to give you some joint venture scenarios and then kind of talk just for a second why that is the case. Because I get asked this question a lot, and that 40% performance requirement trips people up all the time. And so here's an example, and I think we could probably end on this note. Okay, so here's a question. Joint venture small and big biz receive a $10 million services contract. A similarly situated entity performs $2 million of the work. The joint venture must perform blank of the work, and then the protege must therefore perform blank of the work. A lot of people get tripped up on this. I know that you already see what's circled. The correct answer is A. Here's the easiest way to kind of think through that whole performance requirement. Think about what the joint venture is doing and start your math from there. Don't focus on the dollar amount of the contract. So in this case, with a similarly situated entity doing $2 million of the work, the joint venture performs $3 million, thus 50% of said work. And then the protege, here comes that 40%, performs $1.2 million. Now I wish we were in a classroom setting, but we're not. So I know there is probably some confused faces out there. Go to the Federal Register. This exact math problem, if you will, is in the Federal Register, and there is an explanation as to why this is. But again, start from the actual performance of work from the joint venture and not the actual contract dollar amount. I'm going to pause there and give you back like a whole 60 seconds.
Thank you. So I would like to thank Ms. Thurston and Ms. Perkins for the plethora of information that they provided on their disparate mentor protege programs. How about a virtual round of applause? So, where do we go from here? Great question. Our goal is to best prepare your company for future opportunities. Therefore, in addition to the speaker contact information provided, we ask that you contact NAVAIR OSBP to schedule your personalized industry one-on-one meeting. Lastly, ensure that you give us your feedback by completing our survey. We really want to hear from you. And now we solicit questions from the audience. I will remind you to like the questions that you are most interested in us answering so that we can give those answers a higher priority. Over to you, Miss Bebout, for the Q&A.
Thank you, Mr. Butler. So far, I see that Ms. Thurston has answered a good many of our questions in writing. I'm going to start with one question for Ms. Perkins. And the question is, can we get the SBA opinion on what documents are required to submit to the SBA for MP for Mentor-Protege JV? I've been told both separate joint venture agreement and joint venture operating agreement. And then I've been told just use one document and combine them.
This is KA. I mean, just like every other federal office, we're regulated. So our regs are in 13 CFR. If you want to know exactly what to put in your joint venture agreement, I was trying to find that actual reference. It's 13 CFR 124.103, and it's Part C. That tells you every single thing you need to put in your joint venture. So don't let people confuse you. Right? It's regulated. So just everything it says to put in there, put it in there.
Ms. Perkins, I tried to type that in. Can you make sure I got it correct? 13 CFR 134.103 Part C. The next question is for Ms. Perkins and Ms. Thurston, or Ms. Thurston. If a mentor has a top secret facility security clearance and the protege has a secret, can they pursue opportunities that has a top secret facility clearance requirement?
Ms. Thurston, you can go first on that one.
So I want to make sure I understand the question. I may have you repeat it. They want to know if the mentor has a top secret, if they can pursue stuff with the top secret, even though the protege is a secret facility. Is that correct?
That's how I read it, yes.
Okay. So it would depend on the requirements of what's in the contract. However, if you guys are working together, meaning the mentor submits for the contract and the subcontractor or the protege is a sub underneath it, I'm sure you would have no problems with it. However, if the protege who has the secret and the contract is requiring a top secret security or facility clearance is going for the contract, depending on how the requirements are written, they may be not eligible because they may want the prime to have it because of the top secret nature of it. So if it's top secret documents that need to be housed, for example, I'm at the prime facility and the protege does not have that top secret clearance facility, I don't think you would be able to go for contracts that do that. Whereas something else may say, you know, you just may have to have the capabilities, and if you're using the capabilities of your subcontractor, aka your mentor, you may be eligible. So it depends based on how the contract is written. In Mentor-Protege, or if we want to link it back to at least
Sounds
the
like
DOD
we just
Mentor-Protege.
lost.
Hello? Can you hear me? Hello?
I can hear you.
Hello? Okay, okay, okay. If we want to link it back to the Mentor-Protege program, we have many proteges who work to get their secret and top secret facility clearance with their mentor, and their mentor being a sponsor through the Mentor-Protege program. So the Mentor-Protege program can afford you the opportunity to up your security clearance, but as far as you getting opportunities, it would depend on how that opportunity is written in the contract.
And let me just add to that, and if the mentor, if the government has a requirement for top secret and the mentor has that top secret facility clearance and the protege only has secret, then the mentor or any prime can pass the requirement on to a sub via the DD 254 form and designate the top secret requirement, and then that would allow the protege or subcontractor to then go after the TS clearance. They couldn't see anything or do any work at that level until they acquired the clearance, but now they have the requirement to go after that clearance and then eventually get it so that they can do that work. Over.
Okay, another question. Well, 3 more questions that have come in via email, and Ms. Watts has graciously typed them in for us. Veteran-owned small businesses were not included in the list of applicable small businesses for the DON MPP. They only had disadvantaged veteran. Are VOSB eligible for the Mentor-Protege program via the SBA?
Okay, that sounds like that's a question for me. Any eligible small business can participate in our program, even if they don't have a small business certification like SCVOSB. As long as you are a for-profit business or an agricultural cooperative. We say that I've never seen an agricultural cooperative, but as long as you're, for-profit, you're small for the NAICS codes in which you're using to apply, you're fine.
The question goes on, ma'am, to, I guess they're asking you to clarify what you had said. For joint ventures, again, are veteran-owned small business permitted? And also, if you create the JV, is a mentor-protege agreement required?
I think that first part of the follow-on question was, can you have a VOSB and have a joint venture? Yes. And then the second part of the follow-on, was it asking if we review joint ventures, or would you mind restating that?
If you are interested in creating the JV, is a mentor-protege agreement required, or can it be suppressed?
Oh, got it. Okay, so if you're both small independently and collectively, you can go at it together without having an NPA from our program. That NPA is what provides a waiver to affiliation. So that way a small business and other than small business can form an NPA, form that joint venture, and there not be, in most instances, a finding of affiliation.
Another question. If a small business has established a relationship with a prime, is the vendor and the prime eliminated from a mentor-protege relationship, or is that only in regards if the prime owned part of the small business?
Got it. I think their question has to do with affiliation, which is kind of a important yet sometimes elusive term at SBA. There is a section of 13 CFR that goes into many types of affiliation, and there are a lot. Everything from like familial affiliation to whether you guys even work together in the past, or shared facilities, shared staff, and many other types of affiliation. So that is in 13 CFR as well. In fact, you can just Google 13 CFR and then the word affiliation, and it should come up. I believe that section specifically is 121.103, and that meaning 121.103.
Ms. Thurston, do you have anything to add on the Department of Defense side?
From what I heard, I think they said mentors can. Well, let me just say this: the Department of Navy, in order to participate in the Mentor-Protege program, the mentor cannot own any percentage of the protege. So I just wanted to clarify that. If you have worked together, as far as like they were a subcontractor, that doesn't preclude you from participating in the Mentor-Protege agreement. But what I did hear, which is a no-no for our Mentor-Protege agreement, is the mentor cannot own any stake in the protege. Over.
Another question from Ms. Thurston while we've got you queued up. Is the DOD only one lifetime MPP, or is it only one at a time?
So no, it is not one MPP. The protege can only have one DOD agreement at a time. Mentors can have multiple, and that is not just like with the Navy, that is DOD in general. So if you as a small business protege have an agreement with the Army or Air Force, say right now, you cannot have a Navy mentor protege agreement. You can only have one DOD agreement at a time. I have not, and to my knowledge, there is not a limit on the number of mentor protege agreements that proteges can have. However, you can only have one at a time with DOD.
Thank you, ma'am. So another question, which is going to be lengthy, I believe, and that is the differences between the SBAs and the DOD. And Ms. Thurston, I believe you had a slide on that. Can you address it?
Yes, I can. So I did have a quick slide on that. So I think when the slide deck gets sent out, if it hasn't already, it's a quick summation of what we think are the biggest differences. So for the Small Business Administration, the mentor may form a joint venture with the protege that are eligible to perform federal contracts set aside for small businesses. They may have equity investments in a protege firm. They can lend or subcontract to the protege firm and provide technical or management assistance to the protege. For the DOD, mentors can make advance and progress payments, award subcontracts to their protege on a non-competitive basis, lend money, and provide arrangements. One of the biggest difference, or the SBA versus DOD, is DOD provides funding for the mentor-protege agreement, and Ms. Perkins, correct me if I'm wrong, the SBA does not. So that is also, I would say, one of the bigger differences over. Did I lose you all?
I hear you, Ms. Thurston. Ms. Perkins?
I didn't have a lot to add to that. I I think Ms. Thurston is correct. So.
Okay, so there was another email sent in with questions asking us if we could comment specifically on NAVAIR and NAWC-AD contracts, and are there going to be restrictions in the use of JVs on an upcoming competition for MAC? And that is going to have to be something that you have answered when you see the RFP. That are not things that we can address because the procurement officer makes those decisions. And as far as I can tell, all other questions have been answered.
All right. Well, I'll pick it up from here. And again, thank you, Ms. Thurston and Ms. Perkins, for the great presentations. And we really had some good questions. So I hope this has been a learning event, and I'm hopeful that all the small businesses tuning in are picking up the actionable information so that you can go out and better prepare yourself to not only be competitive, but be ready for those opportunities to engage federal government, the Navy, and NAVAIR. And look for those mentor-protege opportunities. You can find mentors in a lot of different areas, and if you're just looking for mentors in general, you can find current contract owners as stated on FPDSNG and start networking. So thank you all for participating in this event. We hope it has been useful for you, and don't forget to give us your feedback on the survey. We appreciate your time and look forward to you joining us on our next webinar. Until then, is that something, Ms. Bebop?
Yes, Mr. Butler, I have two quick questions from Ms. Perkins. I know you're
Okay.
closing up, but
Go ahead.
if you'll allow us the time. Ms. Perkins, does the company need to be part of the SBA and have an SBA loan to participate in the Mentor-Protege Program?
No.
No. Got it. Next question. Oh, wow. Now all of a sudden they're coming up. What is the best way to obtain a copy of the annual report from the SurveyMonkey submission? The help desk is difficult?
Well, we don't have a SurveyMonkey help desk per se, but if you just email us, we can give you a blank copy of the annual evaluation.
Okay, and that is it, sir. We're closing the questions. Reach out to us via email if anyone else has any other questions. And back to you, Mr. Butler.
All right, thank you. So with that, again, we thank you all, small businesses, for joining us today and hope it has been beneficial. Give us your ideas on topics that you would like to have us address for future webinars, and we bid you a fantastic rest of your day from NAVAIR, DON, DOD, and the Small Business Administration. Over and out for now.